Okay, James chapter 1, 22 to 27. But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, will be blessed in his doing. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. You know, it's hard to imagine this passage, isn't it? Sorry, I'm playing around with my phone again because I see there's a third comment, and now I can't even see it on my phone. So I don't know what's going on with Facebook this morning. So if I don't say good morning to you and you comment on there, I apologize. But it's hard for us to imagine what this passage is saying, right? Somebody who looks at themselves forgets what they look like. You know, modern technology and pictures, right? They say, how to tell a good picture. A good picture is how you look. You don't care what anybody else looks like. You don't care if anybody else's eyes are open. You only care how it makes you look. And so that's how you tell a good picture from a bad picture. And it's hard for us to imagine this idea of walking away and forgetting what you look like. So you got to think about the day and age in which James was writing. In James's day, there was no photography. There were no selfies all the time, none of that. Paintings would have been very rare. In fact, it would have only been something that the wealthy could have afforded. So you would have not had a painting unless you were, somehow had a savant in your household and they were a good painter. But even then, you wouldn't have had the money to even supply them with paints. It would have been charcoal, right? It had been colors in the dirt. So it was rare. It was rare to see yourself. Mirrors as well. They were nothing more than just like polished silver. They were beaten sheets of metal. So they were flawed. It was like looking at yourself in Ripley water. You couldn't truly see what you looked like. Again, mirrors were something only the wealthy had. You couldn't afford such luxuries. So you would forget what you look like. One could easily forget their own image. Now, James isn't necessarily talking just about your own image. He's talking about identity as well. The deep down inside. You forget your identity. You get swayed by things in this world. You forget who you are, whose you are, and what you stand for. Identity, James says, is the remedy, that the remedy is God's perfect law. That law of freedom, the law of liberty. Now that sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? When you hear the word law and freedom together, especially younger individuals, those in a generation younger than mine, right? They don't like this idea of being holden to a law. There we go. Good morning, Amber. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on seeing all of this, Pam, but it's kind of weird on Facebook, different messages, but I think I can see all four of them now. But it sounds like an oxymoron. Law and freedom. Law and freedom, right? We don't always think of those two words together. We don't think about God's law bringing us freedom. But let's think about that. So when you're driving down the road, there's laws, right? Speed limit laws. You break it, you're going to get pulled over. Seatbelt laws. try to keep you safe, right? There's red lights and green lights to tell you when you can go, stop signs, yield signs, all of these little laws that you're supposed to obey. Now, we could say, I don't like the law because the law doesn't give me freedom. But have you ever traveled somewhere where they didn't have or didn't obey said laws? You know, I remember my first time in China. So this was before the Olympics and before really the modernization of China. And even in Beijing, you would see hundreds of bikes swarm together like fish going through. And transportation was minimal in a lot of the areas around China. More so in Beijing, Singapore, but in Hong Kong especially, was most modernized. But in other cities, it was a lot of bike transportation. So there was a lot of tuk-tuks, the little, moped type things where, they would taxi you around. And I remember the chaos, of people. There was no law. They might had signs or stops, but or maybe I could go to Mexico, right? In Mexico, it's he who honks first has the right of way. So you barrel into a crowd of vehicles, and because you honked, you just hope everybody gets out of your way, right? He who's biggest and can smash the most has the most right of way, and you're grateful for the laws we take for granted when you drive that way, especially. Oh, the worst one was Jamaica. The worst one was Jamaica because the gentleman was driving a bus, which the driver's wheel was on the correct side of the car, like we would say is the correct side in America. The problem is they drove on the wrong side of the road, which meant myself sitting in the passenger seat because somehow as the trip on the trip, I wasn't the trip leader at the time. I think I was 13 years old. I was driving in the passenger seat of this bus as everything is coming straight at me, and there's no laws, there's no driving. Needless to say, I closed my eyes for a good majority of it. You're grateful for the laws because when there's laws, well, there's some freedom. When we drive and we know that I'm supposed to stop, or I've got the green light and that other side's supposed to stop, and they do 90% of the time. We all know that people run red lights, blah, 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 okay? But that law helps us trust that we're safe. We trust that law. Without it, there's chaos. Knowing these laws brings some freedom. Knowing right and wrong brings freedom. So we find our identity firmly rooted in Christ, in His law, which is on our hearts now, and it gives us freedom. It's not just the Old Testament law. We're not told, we don't have to just obey the 10 Commandments. Do not commit murder. Do not this, do not that. We now have a law in our heart that doesn't just tell us do not, right? Because earlier on we read about Paul and his epistles saying, you know what? All the law does is condemn you. But the Holy Spirit speaking into your heart guides you, directs you. You want to obey, not just have to obey, right? That's what the law of freedom does. So we find that identity in that law through the Holy Spirit that gives us freedom in our hearts. So act in a way that's pleasing to God. You have a choice. The choice is yours. We can continue to go back to the law and continue to worry about, did I do enough right? That's our world, isn't it? Our identity is found, did I please people? Did I make them all happy? Did I produce enough at work? Instead of finding our identity in Jesus Christ, who says, you are good. In fact, when He created human beings, He said it's very good. Even knowing that they would sin, even knowing that they would break the relationship, He said they are very good. You are made in the identity of God, in the image of God. Your identity is found in Him. He doesn't make junk. Sin ruins things. Sin breaks things. Yes, it does. But God still loves us no matter what. You know, that's the beauty. Last night, the Chosen Christmas special had been in theaters, and it was on last night. And I don't remember the exact statement, but Matt Maher made a statement that this is the beauty of the Incarnation. Not that I believe in God, but that God believed in you so much that he sent his son. Now, that's a different way of thinking of it, isn't it? We talk about the Incarnation. God walked among us, came with us, died for us. But he did it because he believed in you. He believed in you. You are valid to him. You are important to him. What you say matters. He hears you. Even when we're wrong, he hears us and guides us, directs us, and puts us on the right path. Our identity should be found in him, not pride. Our identity isn't found in our pride. You know, we can do that even in religious circles, calling what we do religious when we're evil and malicious and we're speaking out in anger. It's not religious. It's broken. Righteous anger, I believe. I'll speak this. And we've talked about anger a little bit on here and how it seems like Paul talked a little bit about a good anger. But let me just say, I think it is nearly impossible for fallen humanity to be righteously angry and not sin in that anger. When we react out of that anger, we do things that are hurtful. We, in our anger against people that would abandon children, we treat all of those people who abandon children as being evil, saying that a person created in the image of God, that is an image bearer of God, that God believes in them, and we say, no, they're not good enough. We just became the judge. And that's a sin. When we, in our righteous anger against abortion, even we stand up for the rights of the unborn baby, and yet we do that at the detriment of calling out those who've had abortions and calling them by name as murderers. Have we not forgotten to love? When in our desire for seeing people walk out holiness, as I do, right? Holiness, we call them out and we say, your salvation is at risk if you don't do this. Have we not sinned in our righteous anger? I truly don't think humanity is able to be righteously angry and act without sinning. Only Jesus could do that. Only Jesus could turn over the money tables of the money changers without sin and malice in his heart. So be a doer, not just a hearer, James says. Practice the virtues of Jesus. Follow his example that he shows us. It's like wisdom. Wisdom, which is that spotless mirror that reflects God on us, God's identity on us, that we see God's identity in those around us. That those around us see God and not you or me. Forget your image and only seek to reflect God's image. That's what we're called to do. And it takes every bit of you. It takes every part of your being to follow this. Our tongue, rarely speaking and not doing so in anger. Controlling our tongue, giving that over to Jesus Christ and saying, Lord, you have my tongue. Sarcasm is not a gift. As one who can be very sarcastic as the youngest child, sarcasm's not a gift. It's hurtful. It's saying things we really would like to say, but saying it as a joke. Having ears that are hearing the word of God. It's revealed to us through Scripture, through Jesus Christ, and hearing the words of others around us. The hurting, the broken. Having eyes to see and to remember. We look back at the past, not so as to idolize the past or the history of the church, but so as to know how to move forward. We have hands and other parts of the body to carry out what God asks of us, to help those in need. But let me just say it this way. We have hands and other parts for God to use you to help others around us. You know, not just the pastor. You are the church. You know, there was a friend of ours in Maryland, and I was still in Maryland a bit. Well, I'd been burnt by the church. We had just moved from Iowa, and in Iowa, I was quickly a part of a board of a small Wesleyan church. It was a dying church, but had a young pastor that was trying to turn things around. And so I went alongside him, and he asked me to lead worship and to change their worship, to start doing like 2 or 3 hymns and then 2 or 3 choruses. And as I began to do that with him, he played the guitar. But as we began to try to change that, when anyone came up and griped about the music, he threw me under the bus. It was all me. And that hurt. That hurt. Now, this church, I know he was going through a lot because he's no longer in pastoral ministry. He's a chaplain. He went back to the military as a chaplain, but that church ate him up. I get it. But while it was eating him, he allowed it to eat others because he wouldn't stand up. And that hurt. We went to another church for a little while and enjoyed that. And there was another small hurt that happened there. And we moved to Maryland, and I kind of was tired of it. And I expressed this to somebody one time about, you know, that whole Jefferson Bernke had just come out with the book, I Love Jesus, but I Hate the Church. And I hadn't read it, but I like those words, right? I said that one time, and, you know, just to this person, because I didn't speak to many people at all about this type of thing. And she looked at me and she goes, you know, that's really hard to hate yourself. And I'm like, what? She goes, well, Scripture calls you the church. So by saying you hate the church, you're hating yourself. She goes, and, you know, I've been there, but I try to find ways to be the change I want to see. Instead of fighting it, instead of arguing about it, instead of hating it and telling everybody else what I hate, I just seek to be the change I want to see. And that changed me. I would honestly say I would not be in ministry. That wasn't my call to ministry. But I wouldn't be in ministry if that hadn't been dealt with when it did by the Holy Spirit, because she spoke into me. But you see, we often label the church as being something other than us. When God talks about going out and looking after the orphans and widows, looking after the oppressed, looking after the poor, the foreigner, the immigrants, he's talking to you and me. We do it together, but not alone. So often we look in our churches and we say, well, we need a new ministry. Pastor, you need to do it. We need this on Wednesday nights. Pastor, you need to step up and do it. And I want to be like, hey, I'm already leading a life group 4 days a week, and doing one on Tuesday nights, which took a break till January, and preaching every single Sunday. And, no, it's time for you to do something. But we do that if we're not careful. We want to put all the weight on the pastor, because the pastor's the church. The staff's the church. No, you're the church. You. All of us. Stop waiting for others to do what God has called you to do. Maybe it's a letter ministry. At our church, we're blessed. We have a group of chaplains that whenever there's someone in the hospital, whenever there's somebody who's had a surgery, they get letters and notes from our chaplains. It's very helpful. I send out letters too and notes every now and then, but it's great to not have to worry fully about that. They found their need. The church is all of us. My call is to proclaim the word of God and to teach, to lead up teachers, to lead up other leaders, to lead ministries. Even Jesus only had 12 disciples, and of them, he only invested deeply into 3 of them. One person can't invest in 500 people. It's just honest. One person can't know every single need of the church. Don't put unreal expectations on any pastor or any staff. You are the church. Step up. You're called to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. And the heart. We have to engage it with our heart and not be deceived. Not allow pride and other things to get in and distract us. Believing, well, I just got to go somewhere else because I'm not being fed. I got to go somewhere else because, name it. Your heart is easily deceived, your emotions up and down. I mentioned yesterday, and I'll close with this, in church, we've talked about orthodoxy, which is right belief. We've talked about orthopraxy, which is right actions, holiness, sanctification, right? But then there's orthopathy. Orthopathy is right emotions. It's allowing the Holy Spirit to control our emotions so that we don't sin in our anger, so that we don't ride this wave of emotions up and down and up and down. The heart, in and of itself, if not controlled by the Holy Spirit, will lead you into dark depressions. It will lead you into deep joy. It will lead you into horrible mornings. It will lead you into, and can I just be honest? I mentioned that yesterday, and last night I had one of the craziest dreams. And I won't go into the detail of it, because I know it was just a satanic attack, if you will. But it was this comment of being ineffective, not wanted. And it weighs on me this morning. It really does. But I know whose feet I need to lay it at. I know whose feet I already laid it at and said, no, that's not who I am. Satan likes to distract us. He likes to challenge our hearts. And if we are caught into the emotion, he wins. If anyone is seeking wisdom, ask. Right? We serve a God who created you, who not only do you believe in, but he believes in you, so much so that the fate of the world, the salvation the gospel good news being spread was put into our hands. Wow. God, we just pray that we would be worthy of your calling, to be worthy of your name. Not all of us are called to suffer. Not all of us are called to die for your name. We're all called to live for it, though. So, God, may we live for your name. May we not find our identity for a while in you and then walk away and try to find it in something else. God, my identity is not in my success. My identity is not in my ability to teach. My identity is it's not in my leadership. My identity is only in you. My identity is not in the pat in the back. My identity is only in you. God, may we all see that. May we not be swayed by the things of this world that seek to pull us down and seek to destroy what you're doing. Your good news, your gospel being spread to all the earth, begins with us, right here. Begins with us living it out, loving you with all of our heart, mind, and soul. All of our emotions, all of our intellect, every bit of our being. May you be the object of our worship today, God. We need you. We need you. Be with us, we pray. Make us aware of your presence, even yet today. In Jesus' name we ask it. Amen. Amen. Well, go in peace, and I pray you have a great rest of the day.